the Empire Builders MasterCast. I am thrilled to have with me today a very dear friend of mine, Amber. Amber Fuhriman, how are you doing?
I am great. I'm so excited to be here and to jump on this. This is so cool.
Isn't it cool? And what's our friend in the back's name? The dog.
Oh, Jasmine, you want to say hi? Come here, baby.
Come here, Jazz.
Come here. Over here, this way. Come say hi. Say
Say
hi. She's like, no, I'm being shy today. She's my office mascot. I actually have I have an image that's being created right now with her with glasses on it, and it says complaint department. Tell me your problems, I'll eat them.
Oh, that's awesome.
It goes in my front. It's my beware of dog sign.
And how old is she?
She's 3.
Aw,
Yeah,
love
when I
that.
rented this place, I told my landlord or my real estate agent, I said, it is your job to filter all the people that are going to say no to my dog. I don't even want to talk to him.
Oh, that's cool.
And he
So, how,
did. He did a good
so
job.
you've been there, you've been in that location for 3 years?
Just one.
Just one. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. Um, are you um, are you at the law office right now?
Yeah, it's in transition because the law office. So originally, it's so crazy how we kind of go to extremes when we make decisions, right? And so a month ago, I was like, I'm done being an attorney, not going to do it anymore. I'm closing it. And it's never about the money and it's about the money, right?
Right.
So
Sure.
it's really, really hard when like 8 to $10,000 walks in the door to be like, I don't really want you today.
Right.
And I'm learning since I don't have staff anymore, I'm learning what my bandwidth actually is and how to be more productive on my own so that when I hire again, I
Mm,
can hire intentionally with what I actually need instead of this wasted space. So
right.
Attorney Amber is no longer the primary, and also she's not going away completely
Gotcha.
because
That's
it would be really boring, right? I gotta have some spice in my life somewhere.
yeah. I mean, not only that, but you've got that great background, education, experience. Some people need that, and you're able to serve many different people in many different ways, and that's one of the ways you can give back to people is through when they need a lawyer, they know who to call.
Yeah. And I mean, this is the Empire Builders conversation,
Yeah.
right? And if we're talking about things that open doors, I mean, Honore always talks about writing a book because books open doors
Right.
for you. I get doors open that probably shouldn't be opened because I have letters after my name,
Right.
right? And it would
Sure.
be really stupid for me to just throw that away.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, before we get into all that, I've got to ask you some fairly simple questions so we can get to know you a little bit because this is your first time on the show. And, although people get to hear me and Honore on a weekly basis and they've had a chance to meet us and kind of determine who we are, I want them to know a little bit more about you and who Amber is. So, what are you up to these days? I mean, besides the law firm transition and all that good stuff, what's going on in your life? I mean, we've got this book thing we're going to talk about today, so that's
I
one big
know. I
thing.
was going to say I'd be an awful business owner and author if I didn't talk about my book. So obviously the book, the transition. There's a lot of challenges in going from a professional space that's, and by professional I mean societally accepted as professional space,
Right.
like an attorney, to this ethereal success selling air. I still don't have any sound. I mean, I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
There you
That,
are.
that was crazy. I don't know. That was
I was
just,
like, I guess he doesn't want to talk to me anymore, and that's okay. I mean, it's the shortest that anybody's ever kicked me off of a stage, virtual or other, but I'll take it.
I was actually trying to respond to Phil and just say, hey, Phil. And all of a sudden, everything just went like
Yeah.
you get nothing. So, hi,
Um,
Phil.
hi,
Hey,
Phil.
Tony.
um, so I mean, there's challenges that come along with that transition,
Mm,
and so getting used to those. Um, and then just all the things, stepping into all the things that are amazing about being more publicly focused and publicly seen, the speaking and as an attorney, we often hide
Mm.
behind the scenes. And so being able to be forward facing is different in so many ways.
Yeah, that is a big difference. It's a bit of a professional lifestyle change, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Moving from one kind of presentation style and presence to another. Are you
Well,
reading any
and
good books?
going from a field that is so regulated to a
Right.
field that is unregulated and adjusting to the fact that you don't have to check in with anybody is huge.
Yep. Yeah, I
Like
went
you
for
feel like you're missing something.
right, right. Yeah,
You're
no,
like,
I
I can just do this. I can just go. Like nobody has to approve my ads.
nope,
I don't have to pay somebody to look at everything I post in public.
nope. Isn't it cool?
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it is liberating. It also feels a little wild, wild west at first, because
It
I went,
does.
you know.
And like I can call people, like being able to like
Mhm.
outreach sell instead of having to sit here and wait for my phone to ring.
Right.
That's probably the biggest adjustment. So
Hey,
yeah, there's so
how's
much.
that going? Do you feel comfortable with that? Or
No, I don't feel comfortable.
good? I've got news for you. You're a human. Yeah,
Yeah, I know, right?
yeah.
I will say that the sales part of me is showing up. And honestly, it's one of the things that I didn't expect to happen so quickly after the book released
Hmm.
was feeling more valuable when I make conversations just by the fact that I have a product that I can give them. Nothing's changed about me or my message in the overnight from hitting publish to not hitting published. Um, but I feel like I have something different to give, which is so crazy the way that that shifts so quickly for us.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
I experienced a little bit of that. I've never been comfortable with like I guess you could say direct sales,
Yeah.
but it was funny how working with a sales coach prior to meeting Honore, I worked with Lisbeth Halen, who, by the way, if anyone's watching this on LinkedIn, go look up Lisbeth Halen. She's amazing. She was a fantastic sales coach, but she had to reprogram my brain from military leader kind of perspective on when you're talking and who you're talking with to, hey, look, when you're having that conversation with someone, when your outreach or your direct sales is happening, you're serving them. Like I always felt
Yeah.
like I was getting them to a point of service. She's like, no, that actually is part of your service. So if you're so service oriented and you're so giving of yourself to others, how come you're having a hard time recognizing that that's part of that? And I was like, oh, that's a really good, like, the mind part of it was so weird. But like to your point about moving from a place where I had to go through approvals and there was like
Mm.
protocol and things like that with every time we reached out, it was a little bit. I felt very wild, wild west.
Yeah,
Stepping out.
absolutely. And it's so true. I mean, the NLP side of what I do, the reprogramming side is incredible. And it's crazy how simple it is. Like somebody just says something to you and it blows your mind. And all of a sudden you're like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, when did I decide that I had to do this? Like, who
Yeah.
who told me that? So I love that. And I'm getting so much better.
Well, you just had a shout out. Well, we had a shout out from my buddy Jesus Safante. Phenomenal human. You would really like Jesus. He's one of the best reliability engineers ever. And he's a fantastic public speaker, instructor, all the things. You guys would get along great.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to reach out just so he can describe what a reliability engineer is.
Well, I could tell you that.
Well, let's go there.
I don't know if you want to go there right now, but I'll give you
Like,
the brief.
is it an actual engineer? Because I
Yep.
call myself a success architect, and people think I build buildings.
Yeah.
Nothing that I build is going to be structurally sound.
Yeah. No, it's an engineering discipline. Before we
Oh,
do that, though, I'll just say, hey, Karen.
hey, Karen.
It's the resident show editor
Yes.
and dear friend. There's Jesus. He's getting a laugh because we actually were reliability engineers. How we met through reliability engineering. Jesus is an industry leading consultant in the reliability space. He published a book. It's fantastic. Thank you, Jesus. We think you're pretty awesome as
Thank
well.
you, Jesus. I'm looking forward to connecting with you. Look forward to me sliding into your DMs in a really non weird kind of way.
Non slidey way.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jesus is his daughter actually, one of his daughters, because he's got several kids, but one of his daughters joined the Coast Guards. There's another connection there. But yeah, so anyways, reliability engineering, I'll keep this super basic and simple and short for those that are going, I don't want to do this, dude, don't do it. Like, they're like covering their ears. Simple, high level is like everything you've ever designed as an engineer has to be
Reliability tested.
right. Well, it has to be reliable, right? Like you
Yeah.
have to be able to use it. So when you say, I bought it to do this job, what's the
Can you
probability that
break
it'll
shit?
do that job when it's supposed to? And
Yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
whole engineering discipline about not only designing for reliability, but then measuring, assessing, and maintaining for reliability. And then on the backside, there's other stuff as well. But yeah, that's
I love
reliability
it. I
engineering.
love it. So, little fact that you don't know about me, I hated science growing up as a kid. I hated, like, I avoided chemistry like the plague. Like,
Really?
if anybody was going to blow up a chem lab, it was going to be me. So I hated it. But I went to engineering camp when I was in like sophomore year, and I fell in love with engineering camp. I thought I was going to be an engineer for a short period of time before I realized that you got to like go above calculus in math, and then I was out.
Well, it is a necessary evil for some people. I was never like a huge like, oh, I can't wait to do calculus. In fact, I was dreading it. Probably the same feelings you were having, but I just figured, well, it's a temporary pain, just like boot camp, being junior enlisted, like all of this stuff.
Yeah.
I just have to push through it and then I'll be good.
My nerd level is high when people dig into my background, like
Mm,
knowledge bowl, computer programming classes, like engineering camp. Like yeah, it was nerd level,
yeah.
except I've never seen Star Wars, so not that nerd level.
What?
I know, I've never seen Star Wars.
You might not want to admit that publicly anymore because like I figured out there are two camps. There's like super Star Wars and there's super Star Trek people. And
Yeah,
then
I watched Star Trek. My dad was a Trekkie.
see, I knew this was gonna happen. As soon as you said you hadn't watched Star Wars, I'm like, okay, she's got to be on the Trek side because like, and I'm not like a big sci-fi guy, but I grew up with Star Wars. Being a child of the '80s.
Me
That's just
too.
right. So there you
Yeah,
go.
I got to fix it because I really think there are only a few things that can ruin your career, and never watching Star Wars is one of them.
I see Tony's response. What? Yeah.
I just lost all my credibility with this
Well,
audience.
yeah. This is like one of those. This is like one of those conversations. It's like a it's like don't talk about religion. Don't talk about politics like at the dinner table on holidays, and then it's like, and then in the background, all the science fiction guys are like, and don't talk
And
about
now we
Star
got
Trek. And
mathematical equations with letters and like greater than signs going on in the comments. So, I mean,
and Tony, I don't want to say I could have predicted this outcome with you, but I'm seeing this very clearly that I could have predicted that you were a Star Wars fan over a Star Trek fan. I'm interested to hear what Phil has to say because I know Phil is in touch with these things. I'm a big Star Wars fan. I never got into Star Trek.
Honor is never going to trust us with her podcast ever again. She's going to be like, what did you guys talk about?
I'm holding all the risk on this. He's going to be like, dude, great job. However, what was the Star Trek thing about?
No, I love The Goonies, Tony. The Goonies is one of my favorite movies ever. Did I just win back some love?
Yes.
I ain't doing the truffle shuffle, though. You're out of luck.
I actually have a video of my best friend doing that in front of the house that was in the movie, and it was completely unexpected. He just like randomly texted it to me one day. All right, let's see. Where's Jesus? Here we go. Don't ask me about Star Wars characters when you interview me, please. Sounds good. Jesus and I have talked about many things. We actually did a live stream one time in front of a fake beach because everyone was miserable. I think it was just like when COVID was kicking off.
Yeah.
And he is originally from Puerto Rico, and I've always lamented about how much I miss being down there. I used to go down there for work all the time. Uh-oh. See.
Phil's on my side. Phil, I see you.
See, Phil drew the line where I like both. He like makes sure he states that first.
I
And then
know,
he's
right?
like,
Switzerland. We'll call him Switzerland Phil from now on.
there you go. Neutral Phil. All right, so Karen, a few comments back. Karen, I didn't ignore your comment. I'm just holding it for the right time. Karen said, "Congrats on your awesome book, Amber," which is like the perfect lead into talking to you about the topic of today's today's episode, which is your inner voice. But before we like get too far into the book itself and what the book is about, I think people need a little bit of a background on like what's NLP, like what brought you to this specialty and doing these things, and then how did that lead to you writing this brand new amazing book, which I'll link in the comments. And then I'm going to shut up and let Amber run with this. So Amber, tell me, what is NLP? What is all this stuff? What brought you here?
Yeah, so before I do that, I have to say that there wouldn't be a book without Karen. So I think so many people in our community feel the same way. I remember sending her my very, very, very first, if you want to call it draft, it wasn't, my very first words on pages that made no sense. And I remember saying to her, if you can make this into something logical that people want to read, you are a freaking wizard. And I could not be happier with what we released. So, my name may be on the cover. Karen is the mastermind behind it actually making sense and being something people want to read. So thank you for that. I really appreciate you.
Amen to that. So she's really good at that, by the way. Don't feel like you're any less of like a writer. Like she's taken transcripts that I've sent her that like most people would go, "What do you want me to do with this?" she's like, she's like, "I got this, dude. Just go do what I tell you to do. Go write these other things while I'm doing this," and then she makes it work. So she is a magic person when it comes to books.
She is. We have a phrase in the NLP world that the most flexible person in the situation controls the situation. And when people ask me what it was like to write my book, I say it was awful because every time I would sit down to write my book, I would get writer's block. But I'm a podcaster and I'm a speaker and I love communicating with people. And I found that I spoke my book in 3 days. So once I sent it to Karen and I said, here's this transcript, like you'd be waiting for another 3 years if I had to sit down and write it. But here are my thoughts on paper. Um, we together worked on getting that after going back and forth, getting it to what it is now. So the reality is there's not a right or wrong way to do this. Like if you put yourself in a box and say, I have to write this many words, I have to do it in this way, I have to do it at this time, you are going to fail. So find out what works for you and do it. And then find people on your team that can work with the way that your mind works. Because if I didn't dictate my book, it wouldn't be written.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I had to dictate for different reasons. I had to dictate the first part of course pricing strategies and a vast majority of monetize your book with a course. With I realized what was happening in my life when I was trying to get monetize your book with a course produced, and I could write in fits, but I couldn't write consistently. And it had nothing to do with like, oh, I just don't feel like writing. It was like literally I was like holding on by the seat of my pants with my schedule, balancing the two businesses and a corporate job and all the things.
Yeah.
And I just realized, like, I think it may have been Honore and I were talking. She's like, well, when do you have like 20 minutes to do a Pomodoro? And I said, yeah, that's kind of my problem. My best 20 minutes would be when I'm driving home from dropping my son off at school, but I'm driving. And she was like, we have to figure that out. And that's when I realized, oh, wait, maybe I could just like kind of talk. And then when I get home, I can revise it, like edit it. But Karen was so good at working with me on my drafts that we realized that my transcripts weren't too terribly far away from my draft, like written drafts. So she
Mhm.
was able to learn my language, learn my tone, learn my way of thinking, and then take the transcripts and help me convert them. So again, yeah, that was like a breakthrough for me. I got the book written in a month because of the
Yeah.
transcribing versus
I can't
just
tell you how
typing.
many pages of my book I wrote in my car
Right.
because it's similar to you. Like, if it wasn't for being able to call people when you're in the car, my brothers and I would never talk. It's like every time I get a call from them, I'm like, where are they driving and how much time do I have to answer the phone? Right.
Right.
Sometimes for busy people, it's the only time that you get to chill. So,
That is true. I mean, yeah, and then you have the you have this situation where you have, let's see, other, like, let's say you're not driving, right? Like let's just say it's like the obligation. Like I have a friend who's writing fiction novels, but he's writing in his kid's playpen, like on
yeah.
his phone while the kid's playing because he's daddy and he's writing, and he's daddy and he's writing at the same time sometimes, you know.
I mean, you
So
got to wear multiple hats so it works. So, yeah. Karen, thank you. Thank you so much for everything that you did.
She's awesome.
Yeah.
Let me see here. We'll answer this question before we talk about the topic of the book, just so we don't
Mm.
deviate. So, Amber, what was your toughest part of writing your book? How did you overcome that situation?
So there was two, and I think they were equally tough. The first was that the parts of the book that I thought were going to be easiest were the hardest to write. My book is very personal.
Oh,
Um, I dig into a lot of stuff that I talk about publicly. There's something different though. Like when you're talking to somebody, you can read their body language, you can
mhm.
see how they're adjusting, you can change the way that you're delivering information to get the message that you want across. I was putting my heart and soul and my background and some of my most vulnerable moments on paper, tying life lessons to that and business lessons to that, and then putting it out into the world for somebody to read and me not be able to defend if they didn't like it. And so when I got to so my book is broken down into four parts, and the last part is courage.
Hmm.
And the courage part I thought was going to be the easiest part for me to write because that's what I've been speaking on stages for the last 3 years.
Hmm.
And it was so difficult for me to, because I can't just talk about it. I have to put myself back in how I felt then so that I can portray those emotions and tie them for somebody who's never been there
Right.
or who is there now but needs to relate, right? Because we've all seen that speaker that has this incredible inspiring story and you're like that's great for you but I've never had to learn how to walk again,
Right.
right? So that doesn't relate to me. So how do we take our experiences and make them relatable to the masses when we can't adjust on the fly? So that was the first thing that was the hardest part. The second that was equally hard was being willing to cut my babies, right? The things that, and let me explain, the things
Just
that
like,
I love. This is a phrase that I remember somebody saying to me like 4 years ago that I didn't understand at the time. And they said, be willing to cut your babies. And I said, what do you mean by that? And they said, there are stories and there are topics that you are going to love, and they don't all belong in your book.
yeah.
So deciding what to keep and what not to keep to have a book that people can read, and knowing that I don't just have one book in me, I probably have 10 in
Mhm.
me. So what belongs in this book and how do I let the rest go for right now? Those were the two hardest things for me. And how did I overcome them? Karen.
Which,
Both. The answer is Karen.
yeah, the answer with a name is Karen. The answer without a name is a really good editor that you can trust. So, like,
Yeah.
you know,
I mean,
I don't
to
want
have
people
her
like
send
consuming all of Karen's time because we need her, right?
Yeah, I mean, to have somebody that would come back and say, because I remember asking her, "Is there anything in here?" Because at one point I added almost 10,000 words during an edit, and I sent it back to her, and she's like, "You added a ton." And I said, "When you go through it, if anything doesn't need to be here, I need you to honestly let me know." And we decided it was all relevant.
Oh, that's good.
Um, it and there were multiple times where I told her this isn't ready, and she's like, "It's never going to be ready. Send it to me and we will make it ready together." You need a team, and this is where so much of what I train and teach comes in. If you try to do it yourself, if you try to have it be perfect before you let it go out into the world for anybody else to see, it will never see the light of day.
It's true. It's very true. I am not currently planning,
Which presupposes that you are.
right? I I will probably never write a book by myself. Like I've
Oh,
written,
never.
you know what I'm saying? It's like even like I even take it like beyond the point. Like honestly, Karen for me on my first book was quasi book doctor slash coach, quasi editor, right? Like the editing was like a second tier benefit of working with her. And then, of course, I had Honore to mentor me and guide me through the process and tell me what to look for and how to think about the development of the book versus what I'm used to doing, you know, like building courses and other things. But I started as a fiction writer who started writing nonfiction, and my nonfiction world was mostly military policy and technical publications and things like that. So I had to kind of break that mold a little
Because
bit.
everybody loves to read those.
Right. So I had to kind of like figure out how to make this nonfiction voice me, but also meet the right person at the right time. And Karen was really good about doing that. But then when I went to do fiction, I was so convinced by my experience with nonfiction with Karen and Honore that I was like, yeah, I'm not jumping back into fiction and try and write some serious fiction without a book coach and a developmental editor. And so that was like the very first thing I did was went to Honore and said, "Hey, who do you think I should trust with this relationship?" And she's like, "Yeah, Zach Bohannon. Like, give Zach a call. You guys are already like on the same wavelength. You would probably love to do this together." And thank God I did, because man, what a difference there is in the book. So it doesn't matter what kind of book you're writing. I think you really need that relationship to make it the best it can be. You can write a solid book, a great book without that, but it's so much better when you have it. And Tony,
And it takes so much time. Like
yep,
I would still be editing.
yeah,
Tony, I'm really excited to learn more about your book. I'm going to connect with you because I want to know all the things, all the book things.
yeah. Tony's got a great story, and you're really going to enjoy what he's doing with his profession, like what he does to serve people. You're really gonna
I
dig
love
it.
it. I
Yeah.
love the hashtag unbreakable.
Yep. Yeah. It's all built into his brand, which is, business last and serving people first.
I
So,
love it.
yep, Tony's awesome. And then we've got the topic of NLP we got to tackle, right?
Yes.
So,
Oh,
what
so we got
is
to talk about real stuff now. All right.
yeah, what is that? What is the
What
NLP?
is NLP? The simple answer is the science of success. The more complex answer, if we're going to break down the word neuro, the neurological way that our brain is formed, how do we see the world, what experiences dictate the way that we process information, all the things about imprinting and our brain development and our sociological development and all of that. And then the linguistics, the language that we use. What words are we using? How are we communicating with others? The biggest mistake people make is they assume communication happens. What do we do to ensure that communication happens? How are we communicating with ourselves? How are we communicating with others? And what impact are our words having on our success and the success of others? And then the programming part, nothing is permanent, right? How do we reprogram the experiences that we've had? So if you have an experience that makes you believe that you can't do something, so I'll use my experience of not being able to sell, excuse me, coming from a professional world where I can't cold call, I can't outreach. It's very easy for me to fall back into the I can't sell, I can't sell, I can't sell. Well, what was the first experience where I ever told myself that? And how can we reprogram the way that my brain sees that experience so that it can go from I can't to creating a different world model where it's easy? So through this, we get to create better relationships with people. We get to create more money for ourselves, better business success, better communication, leadership, all of the things. It really is the science of human behavior.
So, what does this have to do with the topic of your book, right? Because your book is called, Break Your Bullshit Box.
It is.
Right. And I by the way, I love like that this is because I've got this insider knowledge about what that is, right? It's like it's
Yes.
a product line. It's not just a topic for a book. It's an actual coaching program and a method of approaching. Well, I'll let you explain exactly what you're solving with this, but it's a big thing. It's a much bigger than just like a cool book title.
It is. I mean, I think to me, it's the secret. It's the secret to success. So here's kind of how it came to be. I, for so long, when I was on stages speaking, spoke about my compartmentalization box, right? You asked how I went from attorney to coach, how I got into the NLP world. And I wish I had a different answer other than I had a emotional breakdown. But it's the truth, right? So I had this vision of what the world was going to be like when I had a level of success that I had decided was going to be enough. And to me, just like every other kid from the 80s, that was a six-figure income. Six figures was the magic number. You were going to have no problems when you hit six figures. Well, I hit my first six-figure year in 2015, filed my taxes in what, probably February, In March, I started having panic attacks and anxiety attacks. My
About the
world
taxes?
model, yeah, what's that?
Just about the taxes?
Well, because yes, about the
They give
taxes.
me they give me anxiety too.
They do. No, the reality is I had this world where all the stuff, all the shit that I had put in this box, this compartmentalization box that I'd carried around since I was 8 years old, all of that stuff was supposed to go away when I had six figures.
Hmm.
So I would get on stages and I would talk about the suicides that I experienced as a kid, the deaths in, I mean, I went to 10 funerals between the ages of 8 and 18. I
Wow.
lost my dad at the age of 18. Like, I had a horrible relationship with my mom. All of this trauma that wasn't trauma in my mind because I came from a two-parent household and had a good childhood and, was never that bad, right? So all this stuff went in my compartmentalization box, and I really lived in a world where I thought six figures was the secret to making it all not hurt anymore. And when I hit a six-figure income and I still had to deal with the pain, I crashed, and I crashed hard. And I started having panic attacks and anxiety attacks. I couldn't work. For the first time in my life, I was getting sent home from jobs because I couldn't function. I started going to therapy. It was helpful in a reactive way.
Hmm.
And in 2017, I was going to go back to bartending. I decided that being an attorney had ruined my life and I needed to go find out where I had gone wrong. And somebody suggested I open my own business. I was like, this sounds like an awful idea, but I have nothing to lose. So I'll open my law firm. And in doing that, I quickly realized I had no idea how to run a business. Like, I
Hmm.
didn't even know where envelopes came from. Every job I'd ever worked at, they were just there, like this magic cupboard existed, and you opened it, and then all the supplies were there. So I'm sitting in my office, and I'm like, oh, I got to mail an envelope, or I got to mail a letter. Well, where's the stamps? And oh my gosh, I don't even have a pen to write the address with. Like, it was comical. It was comical. So I started going to business seminars, and I found NLP. And when I found it, I went down this road for the intention of being a better business owner, being a better attorney, and I did all those things. But then all of a sudden, I'm having real conversations with my mom. I'm connecting with people that I hadn't been able to connect with for a long time. I'm stopping my therapy because I'm no longer having panic attacks and anxiety attacks. And I'm starting to realize that this isn't just a business journey, that it's a life journey. So, that background in mind, I stand on stage, I talk about your compartmentalization box, I talk about courage being the thing that you need in order to step out into the world, the dangers of tying your own success to this external result because you're still the same person. And after 3 years, I was like, there's something missing, there's something missing.
Hmm.
And it's the bullshit, right? The bullshit is what was missing. We have the compartmentalization box, but we also have this bullshit box, which is where we put all of the excuses that we use to hold ourselves back all the time. And if we close our compartmentalization box and we never open it, thinking that there's a level of success that's going to take it away, our bullshit box is always open. And every time we set a goal, we hear that voice in our head that tells us why we can't have it. And whatever excuse is most accessible and the most successful at keeping us in our comfort zone is what we're going to grab onto. So the book talks about how these two boxes need to be flipped. The things that are in your compartmentalization box are the things that make you human and relatable. They're the things that people connect to that make you somebody different and unique. And the things in your bullshit box, they need to be locked up. And those excuses need to be inaccessible until you're ready to break that box, burn or destroy the excuses, and live the life that you were meant to live. So that's the break your bullshit box mentality.
It's awesome. And so so to me this is very fascinating because um I don't care what kind of background you have before you become an entrepreneur or a business owner. It is a unique challenge, and you could be as well prepared with a lot of the traits that people think you have to make that work. You could have all those things lined up, but if you don't understand how to manage all those resources that you have, your experiences, your education, your energy, your life, all of that stuff, if you don't know how to manage all of these things together, and do it in a way that it serves you and your business, not just your business, you can only get so far, right? Like, and that's one of the reasons why I've always pursued coaches in my life and mentors outside of this. Wasn't just to learn like how to run the business or how to become an author or how to, uh, be the best engineer I could have been at the time. It was always more than that. Like Hank Kosovar was one of my mentors when I first left the service. I reached out to my dad and said, Dad, how do I transition from being a service member to like an independent consultant in this world? And he's like, go talk to Hank because Hank's been through that and he's also a great mentor. And so he was able to show me how to manage those things, but he was also able to show me how to like think about things and how to approach
Yeah.
my energy like, hey dude, you can do all these things, but make sure you're taking some time to, also do X, Y, and Z. And he showed me how to be like to discriminate against like certain projects. Like I think that would be a fantastic thing to do with my time. And that, although there's money attached to it, would not be, right? Like
Yeah.
how to discern. I guess discern's better than the word discriminate in this case. But yeah, so this is really interesting because I think it's something that we all need and we don't sometimes recognize until, like you said, it's reactive, right? The damage is done and we've figured out that the tools we thought we had in the toolbox to help make this work aren't actually fitting the equipment, right? Like we're not able to fix what we
Yeah.
thought we were.
Well, and this goes back, and this is why NLP helped me so much, because this is NLP in a nutshell. We are all walking around in our own model of the world. That's it. You see the world differently than I see it. Tony sees it differently than either of us see it. I'm an attorney. This is why I can look at a police report with 10 witnesses and get 10 different accounts of what happened.
Hmm.
Everybody sees it differently because their model of the world is different. And so until something happens to shake that model of the world, we continue living in it thinking it's fact and truth,
Hmm.
unless we intentionally choose to look at places that we could see it differently. Now, taking this into a sales conversation, this is where most salespeople go completely wrong. Leaders go completely wrong, is they expect everybody to jump into their model of the world. This is the
Hmm.
way I see it. This is the way it has to be. You don't have to agree with somebody's opinion. You don't have to agree with their model of the world to acknowledge that that is their model of the world and respect it.
Hmm.
And the moment that you respect it and step into it, you can now communicate with them. But if you're standing back saying, let me tell you why my model of the world is better than yours, or why mine is right and yours is wrong, you never have true communication. You never have true sales, leadership, or connection. It's all about understanding that what I see in the world is different than what anybody else sees in it. And I love seeing and understanding and hearing and feeling how other people experience the world.
Oh,
It is
that's
one of my
awesome.
biggest passions.
So, I mean, you get that every time you can serve a client, so it's mutually beneficial outside of just like exchanging finance for service, right? Like I think a lot of people I say that often, like a lot of people think this way. It's just we're kind of programmed in some ways to think, okay, I'm doing business stuff, so I'm thinking business ways, right? Like I've got a contract I got to send over and you got to sign it and then you got to exchange money and then we can get started and all these things. But in the reality is like, why are you excited about looking at that contract? Is it because you feel like you need to pad the bank or you
Yeah.
just haven't had the fund flows that you want or expect in your business? Or is it because that's a gateway to doing something that you love to do, right? Like
Yeah.
it's a bonus that I get to get paid this way for doing this awesome work that I get to do. I have a question for you that's like not probably expected.
I love unexpected questions.
Well,
They're
this
my
is just
favorite part.
hitting my head because I'm a coach, you're a coach. We've learned from coaches. We have coaching mentors in our lives. People that have done this for much longer than I have are currently mentoring me, even though I've got 25 years of leadership under my belt. Every time I coach someone, it's a little different and unique. I found out about myself, which is not something that I was taught to focus on in leadership training, but I found out that I have to do coaching and I have to do leadership a certain way for it to serve me in a way that I can continue to serve people because it pulls a lot from me. Like
It does.
when I was full on coaching, like we talk about Stacy, like we've met, like I was talking to Stacy, I said, God bless you. Like I could not do what she does,
Yeah.
because it emotionally drains me so much. She's like, oh dude, this fills my cup. And
Yeah,
I'm
me
like,
too.
I know.
I can train and coach all day, and I am so rejuvenated.
See, I feel both ways. It's crazy. Like,
Then I need like a dark day. Like after I train for like 8 days, I
right.
shut off my phone. Nobody can get a hold of me. It would be like if something happened to me, it'd be like 24 hours before anybody realized that was a problem.
Gotcha. Maybe yeah, for me it was like it's a bit of that, right? Like I guess I just never really like learned how to manage my energy expenditure. Like I was like all in on serving and coaching and was doing just having fantastic relationships and experiences as a coach and with my clients. And they were super happy because, you know, big mystery solver here. If you're happy with the service you're providing somebody, they tend to receive it in a better way than if you weren't, right?
Yes.
It makes the coaching better, the relationships better. I always feel like I'm on, like when the time is on, I'm on. And then
Yeah.
when the time was off, I was like, ugh, like I just had to breathe, you know?
But have you ever had those moments? And these are my favorite moments as a coach. So hopefully people receive this the way I intend it and I don't come off as completely unreliable. Um, have you ever gotten off a call and you're like, God, I really failed in that coaching call? Like, I
Yeah.
don't know if I gave them anything of value. And then you get a message and you're like, and they say, thank you so much. I feel like I'm in so much action right now. That was the best call we've ever had. And you're like, that one? That one was? Okay, good for you. Thank you. Um, sounds good to me.
You know when I had that feeling the most was when I had to cut a client loose. Like I was the one who had to break up, because I knew they weren't being as coachable and
Yeah,
I wasn't the right fit for them, but all they could see was the outcome.
yeah.
And so they were like, no, 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 this will work because like, you have what I need to get where I want to go. And I'm like, yeah, but this isn't working. And so I had to let them know that like, hey, I think you would be better served somewhere else with someone else. Here's the money back.
Because if not, I'm gonna go to jail. No.
Right? No,
I,
just like I know I can't fill your cup the way you need it to be filled.
yeah. Well,
Right?
and kudos to you because there are so many people in our space that will sit back and continue to take somebody's money,
Hmm.
knowing that they're not getting results and put it on the client to acknowledge that there's a problem.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And I'm a big believer that the coach is always the problem. And what I mean by that is yes, the client is always the problem. The coach is always the problem too. If I'm not moving you, then I'm not the right coach for you.
Right.
And you need to go find somebody else that is the right coach for you that can move you. Now, if what you're doing is hiring coaches, not doing the work, and then using those coaches to fill your story of why coaching doesn't work, then that's a different conversation. And there's a lot of that out there. But when somebody says to me, I've been working with this coach for the last year, and I don't feel like I'm moving as much as I'd like. Is it me or is it them? And my answer is always yes.
Yeah.
It's both. If the relationship doesn't work, it doesn't work. This is why I don't believe in competition ever. Like there is a place in the world for for everybody that does this work because I am not the coach for somebody who needs to be coddled and loved. I can coddle and love if I need to, but it's going to come with a real hard reality check
Wait, do you have like
afterwards.
a clause in your contract that there's no coddling and loving? Like,
There, I do, right? I, um, well, my book is called "Break Your Bullshit Box" for God's sake. Like, it doesn't.
bullshit's in the title.
It is, it is. So, and I love that, Phil. What benefited you the most, and where should we focus next? When I started coaching, I remember somebody saying to me, "If you ever feel like you're stuck, ask the client what they need." And I
Mm.
said, "Doesn't that defeat the purpose of me being a coach?" And they said, no, that's exactly what makes you a coach, is realizing that they have all the answers, not you. You're
Mm.
just here to help them realize those answers. If
Right.
you had all the answers, you would be a strategist or a consultant instead of a coach. That's the difference.
Well, that's kind of what happened with that client I was talking about. He hired me to coach him and was doing. He was asking for things that he would ask a consultant for, and I'm like, I'm giving you something different than what you really need. If you need a consultant, then you need to hire a consultant. If you need a coach, then hire a coach. Right now, the
And you
agreement
probably
we
need
have is
both,
coaching.
if I'm being honest.
Well, that's
So,
usually what ends up happening is I usually end up saying, it's funny because it usually happens in the inverse. People usually call me and say, "Hey, can I hire you to do this project for me?" And I'm like, "Sure." It comes with a lot of coaching. And
yeah,
they're like, and I'm like, so if you're not ready to have that kind of relationship or hear that kind of stuff from somebody, you're probably better off hiring a different consultant. But
yeah,
I'm not going to just do things and not share with you why I do them or why you should do them or like why this works and that doesn't.
yeah,
Because as a consultant, you could literally hire me to do things that I don't necessarily think are the right way. And I should be executing as a person who you've hired to execute, like do what I've asked you to do, please. Which is totally different than the educational process and the growth process that comes with coaching.
yeah. You
So
know, I had somebody come to me and they're like, "I want to hire you as a coach." And I said, "Cool. I would love to coach you. What do you need done? I want you to write my SOPs." I'm like, I would rather like poke myself in the eye with a dirty needle. That is not going to happen.
that's not
Um,
coaching.
that is never going to happen. If you want me to coach you so that you can write your SOPs, then I am game all day long. But there are few things in this planet that sound worse to me than writing somebody else's SOPs.
Yeah, the rate for that's going to be different.
Yeah, it's not going to be cheap.
Yeah, I've told people that before. Like, I can do that work for you. You probably don't want me doing that work for you just
Yeah.
because the amount of money you're going to have to pay me to do that for you is
I
just
have to
not
pay
fair.
for my happiness.
Yeah.
So you're actually strike that. You're going to have to pay for my happiness.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you on that. So it's one thing to have the coaching program. It's another thing to have this this public speaking, which by the way, a lot of people want to get into public speaking, but they're not sure exactly how to make that work. You've done a good job of stepping into that arena. But what convinced you to put this into a book rather than serve solely as a coach or solely as a public speaker or both? What made you want to go, I should really put this into a book and share this in this format?
So you know how people like name boats in a marina and they're always named after like names?
Yeah.
I'm just gonna like take all my lessons and name them names. So Karen is the lesson, or Karen is the solution to overcoming my obstacles, and the answer to your question is Honore. So
Which makes sense.
no, no, I've been a reader my whole life. I think I came out of the womb reading books. I told you I was a nerd. I still go home. I grew up in a town of 1,800 people.
Oh,
You never get forgotten. Okay.
wow.
So I go home and my elementary school sixth grade teacher still comes up to me and introduces me to people as the person that wrote a book report in our sixth grade class on John Grisham books. Like I have always been a reader, and my dad and I had such a beautiful arrangement where like I would pick a book and he would pick a book and we would read it and then we would trade it. And reading has just always had this special place in my heart. So I knew I wanted to be an author. When I started talking about writing it into a book, though, I had known Honore for almost a year before I let her guide me because I was going to figure it out on my own. And I spent a year figuring it out on my own and then 5 months with Honore and Karen on my side from hiring to publishing. So I think there's a few different decision makers. Number one, I wanted to be an author. I loved authors. Number two, I love connecting people. So for a long time, I hosted a book club, and now that's been incorporated into my membership program where I bring in books, do a recommended book of the month, but I only suggest books where the author will donate an hour of their time to come in and connect with the readers. I wanted to connect readers and authors so that readers could learn that anybody can be an author
Right.
if they want to be, right? It's not this prestigious platform that you get put on. everybody can write a book, but not everybody will. So if that's what they really want to do, they can't. Nothing makes us special because we have a book out. And everything is special because we have a book out at the same time.
Mm.
It's this weird dynamic. The third is I remember the feeling that I got the first time I asked somebody for a business card and they handed me a book. And I will never forget, number one, the way that made me feel. And number two, the fact that unlike a business card that's going to get thrown away, a book, while it might get put on a bookshelf, is always something that gets revisited and looked at more than a business card, and it's memorable.
Mm.
And then the last is I wanted to be a speaker, and I needed a next step for people to take when I got off stage that was different than, I know that you just met me, but now hire me for one-on-one coaching.
Right. Which is a big jump.
It's a huge jump.
Yeah.
There's a lot of trust that goes from seeing me on stage or seeing anybody on stage and hiring them as a one-on-one coach.
Yeah. I mean, they haven't even seen the way we can, drink beer at camps, like,
I
or
know.
barbecues.
So I quit drinking.
Oh, good. Wait, who am I supposed to hang out with now?
Wait, but only until my birthday.
I'm just kidding, guys.
I needed a break. I needed a break.
I need that.
So anyways, I decided that I was going to take 6 weeks. No,
Oh, good.
is it 6 weeks? It's not 6 weeks. It's from the beginning of August to the middle of October. So 12 weeks, 9 weeks, 10 weeks. Now you see why I wasn't an engineer.
Or a scheduler, maintenance scheduler.
However long that is. Because I just felt like everywhere I was going, I was grabbing a drink. It was the first thing that I did. And I would, like, I didn't drink at home. I didn't necessarily feel like it was a problem, but I didn't like the fact that I was showing up places and the first conversation I was having is, what am I going to put in my hand? And so for me, I was like, I'm just going to stop until my birthday. So I am a month in and I haven't even craved it.
Good for you. Good for you. I just like my kids and the books and
I don't have kids, by the way. So if I had kids,
right.
quitting drinking might be different.
Well, they will, they just occupy your thoughts and time. It's not even like a guilt trip thing. They're not like, Daddy or Mommy, why are you drinking beer? And you're like, oh, I shouldn't do this. It's not that. It's like, they just like pull your brain and your energy and all the good. And by the way, I love it. Would rather, spend those things with them than anywhere else. But it does distract you from from things like drinking beer. That's why
or make it more necessary depending on your outlook.
Well, yeah, that's why when you see me in
day.
Yeah, when you
or
see
how
me in
old
Nashville,
your kids are.
I'm like, hey, how you doing? It's like I get to hang out and do that. So specifically about the book, what exactly is that? So I'm a big fan, especially with nonfiction books, of pointing to the outcome that a book can help me achieve. That really puts the value prop to me on any kind of offer, whether it be coaching, courses, books, whatever. Because there's so many books out there and there's so many courses out there and there's so many programs out there that when you choose the one that best serves you, usually it comes down to a couple factors. But one of the things that is like a must have is that it has to show the value that you expect. And that's almost always associated with some type of outcome.
Yep.
So like, what outcome does your book help a reader achieve, or at least understand more?
Yeah, the biggest thing is going to help them understand what they didn't know that they didn't know about what goes on in here.
Okay.
We walk around, as I said before, in our model of the world. And until something challenges that, or until we read or hear something that says, oh, I never thought about it like that before, we have no reason to look for those resources. So the first thing is understanding that there's things that go on in here that maybe we haven't acknowledged. And then the book is a high level introduction to some NLP concepts. And it's broken down into 4 parts. The first part is about your identity, like understanding the role identity plays in the way that you see the world. The second part is the bullshit. Like, what is your bullshit box? Because I love, my favorite comment from people as I've launched this and started talking about it is, I feel like I'm actually pretty good. I don't have a bullshit box.
Yeah, you do.
All right. let's go there then, right? And so then I'll start talking about, well, so you have everything in life that you have ever wanted to achieve. Well, yeah. Okay, cool. And then 3 or 4 sentences down in the conversation, they're telling me the reasons that they don't have something. And I said, good thing you didn't have a bullshit box, right?
Right.
So, understanding that we all have one, you just maybe haven't thought of it before because we are trained to think positively, especially in the personal development space. So, when you start talking about the excuses that you have or the thoughts that you have that go on in your head or any negativity at all, we're trained in this toxic positivity mindset to switch everything to be positive and this statement, by the way, is not meant to trash mirror work because I think mirror work is really important. But standing in front of a mirror telling yourself you think you're great when you really don't think you're great doesn't accomplish very much. The fake it till you make it mentality isn't a thing. And I talk about this in the book. I don't believe in fake it till you make it. I believe in believing it until you become it, acknowledging that you're not it yet. And there are steps that you need to take and information and resources that you need to gain in order to be whatever it is. If you're faking it until you're making it, you're not acknowledging that things are missing and you're never going to take the steps that need to be taken to get to the result. And then once we really talk about the bullshit box, then we dig into designing your life. You know, what's the plan? Now that you know that you have bullshit in your head, then how are we going to build a very specific plan that gets you the results that you want, acknowledging the bullshit and dealing with it instead of ignoring it?
Hmm.
And then the last is courage. You know, I say on stage that a blueprint without courage is just scrap paper, and courage without a blueprint is wasted energy.
Hmm.
You've got to have them both.
So this book will cause, I feel like it's a really good book to kind of like get close with, right? It's not like a passive read where you're just like, yeah, I'm gonna zip through something
No.
to get another book on my I read X number of books this year list. If you're looking for something that really helps you kind of dive a little deeper into how you work and what you need to do to be better at what you want to do, which by the way is all positive. Like it's like, you
Mhm.
know, the more I understand about myself, the easier it is for me to live with myself, right? And to
And
do
with
the things I
others,
need to do.
right?
Yeah,
When
absolutely.
we acknowledge more that we know about ourselves, because you're human and I'm human. So when we know more about ourselves, then I already know more about you.
Right.
And then I can connect with and communicate with you differently. And Phil, I love your comment as a sales coach. And as a sales coach, you know, especially now, nobody wants to be sold and everybody wants to buy.
Yep.
And by the time they're connecting with you, they already know what they want. The question is, are they going to buy it from you? And
Right.
what's the difference between you and everybody else? The way that you make them feel. And you cannot do that if you can't connect with them.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and if you're the person that is providing some type of service or product to someone else, and you don't understand your own inhibitions or your own barriers to success, no one expresses or understands that frustration or even feels the impact of it like you will, right? Like you will hit a
No.
ceiling, you know?
And if you're, you know, so I love imposter syndrome. I have a love hate relationship with my good friend, imposter syndrome.
You think it's a
And
real thing?
what's that?
Are you of the opinion that it's a real
Oh,
thing or that it's okay?
100%.
Right.
Yeah. And what's so interesting is I will sit in it, right? Because I'm supposed to be the success coach. So if I'm sitting here feeling like I'm not successful on a Monday, then what good am I to anybody? So I've got to fix whatever's going on so I can feel successful before I can show up to the world. And then I'll hit some sort of a barrier and I'll do some rant on Facebook about how inefficient I feel and unsuccessful I feel. And all of a sudden, that's where the connection comes from.
Hmm.
I remember, and I talk about Brene Brown a lot in my book because she's a huge part of my journey. And I remember watching her TED talk for the first time. And she talks about the fact that vulnerability isn't being perfect before you walk into a room. Because number one, you'd never walk into the room. And number two, nobody would want to connect with you if you
Hmm.
were already perfect when you walked in the room. It's the
Right.
struggle that people connect with. So when we say these are the biggest struggles I have with sales. These are the biggest struggles I have with success. This is what I'm going through right now because I'm human. Then all of a sudden, the people that we've been trying so hard to connect with as this perfect person that can solve their problems, they come to us because they know that we know how they feel.
Yeah, absolutely. It's relatable, right?
So I'm curious because of your question, are you of the camp that imposter syndrome doesn't exist and isn't
No,
real?
no, I'm not. I'm not of that camp. I'm a funny person when it comes to all these things. I think a lot of these things are always looked through like a one or the other
Yeah.
lens, and to me, there's almost no complex problem that's that simple.
Mhm.
I will say this: I rarely throw around the fact that I have a doctorate. But I think one thing I really learned in my doctorate was that it's more about learning how to think through problems and think in a more dynamic way than you were probably required to do before. And it just changes the way you look at complex things. So when I look at a complex problem like something like imposter syndrome, or like when Honore and I were just recently talking about writer's block, and I'm not going to be too much of a spoiler. She's talked about it publicly. She has a book coming out on the topic. But when I see these things, I always think about them from multiple perspectives. And I feel like with imposter syndrome, that there's so much more there to unpack than just one little label will be slapped on your forehead, right? So if someone's like, "Oh, I know what your problem is. You've got imposter syndrome," and you're like, "Huh, you're right. I I do have imposter syndrome." If you feel like that's it and like you just figure this little label out, you can pull it off and you're done. That's not the dive you need to really understand what's going on. So yes, I do agree that it is a thing. I just feel like learning how to think about it and work with it is a very like unique problem solving
Mhm.
exercise where you have to kind of figure out where your particular block is coming from or where your particular cause of imposter syndrome is originating from. Like, I've been in some professions where it was because of cultural things, right? Like,
Mhm.
hey, I couldn't possibly be this because I don't fit that definition of that the
Yeah.
industry has established. So I'm an imposter
Yeah.
because of that definition.
Well, and imposter syndrome is definitely the symptom, not the cause.
Right.
100%. It's really interesting. I'm going to be careful to not say the name of this person because I think he talks about this in his book. And also, I don't know whether he does or whether it's insider information. So I'll just say that there is a very big name in this space that did a speech in front of like 50,000 people. And he started to walk out on stage and he heard the crowd roaring and he looked over to the usher or whoever was walking on stage and he's like, "Who are all these people here to see?" And they go, "You."
You
And he
dude.
froze. He couldn't walk out on stage. Like it took a few minutes for him to walk out on stage. And he is somebody that like so many people, he's a big name in the
Mm.
space, enough to say that even the people that we look at and say, "You must never deal with this," they're human, right? It's human behavior. The second thing I want to talk about what you said just really quickly is I would love to live in a world where we can solve problems and then they just go away forever, but we
Mm.
are human and it doesn't exist. And
Right.
so, these a really good friend of mine hosts a podcast. I think it's called Tear Out the Labels. She has a clothing line where she doesn't do any labels. There's
Because
no
they're
sizing
annoying.
labels. What's that?
Because they're annoying.
Well, number 1, because 'cause they're annoying, but number 2, like, she's taken the sizes on shirts and she has put words around them rather than sizes. So instead of small, it's like spectacular or whatever. And the very first time she works with a client, she has them write down all the labels they've ever given themselves and like actually attach them to their body and they rip them off one at a time to symbolize letting go of the labels. Um, this is one of the fundamental problems that I have with the medical industry. I'm not a doctor, so take my opinion for a grain of salt. But when we tell somebody they have something, they believe it. When we diagnose somebody with something, they believe it. A diagnosis is a curse and a blessing. Um, when what we tell our brain we believe. So if we start saying, I can't learn because I have dyslexia, I can't learn, I can't focus because I have ADHD, like those things get implanted. So I will never tell a client what I think their problem is. I will help them come to the solution on their own, because there is a fine line between eliciting what's going on in a client's mind and installing the label that you have in your head for what their behavior means.
Nice. Very good. So guys, look, you're gonna have to go buy the book to figure all this stuff out and learn all these things. There's so much to unpack. I mean, you have
So
so
much. We could be here forever. And I mean, you and I clearly don't like talking to each other. We never have any fun. So, I mean, can you make it more interesting next time, please?
yeah, and this is Honore, I hope you are watching this, because she did make the mistake of putting us next to each other at the last EBM meeting, and
I know. Well,
I
she was
thought as
trying to
I
separate me from Stacy, and she put me next to you, which I don't know that that was any better of a solution. I had Karen on one side, you on the other. I mean,
yeah, and poor John Stongy is sitting to my right, and all I'm doing is the whole time is giving him a hard time, just playing around, just to make just to have to give him a little bit of fun. The book is so inspirational.
I'm going to use that new word, inspirational. Thank you, Karen.
I am not going to pick on the editor right now.
Nope. The editor, like there are a few people in your life that you don't mess with. The dentist when they have a drill in your mouth, and the editor when they control what happens with your book. There could be a sentence in my book that I have no idea is there from when Karen gave me her rough draft, and she wouldn't, because she's ethical. But if I had pissed off my editor, I'll know what's in my book.
she goes, sorry. Yeah, she's smiling right now is what she's doing.
She is human.
Yeah. I just had a fiction book edited by my buddy Zach, and he's a phenomenal editor. We part of it is that we know each other and we're very comfortable with each other, so he can be brutally honest with me.
Yes.
And there's times in that book where I'm like, I think he asked that question just to drive me nuts, right? Like, hey, do you think you could do this instead? I'm like, I'm going to think about that for the next 3 hours, dude. It's like, so Karen right now is making a list of all our
all of
places.
the things.
Yeah, she's like, all right, Marino, I see you. You got that market.
Yeah, no, it's all with love. And it gets to go on the other side because the course is next. So Lucas will be like, do you think you could do this? No, Lucas, I can't.
And I'm going to say, where's that box?
Where's that box? It is right here on my desk, which that is the next step, is the physical bullshit boxes. So
well, I was going to ask, but I didn't want to be the guy. It's like, hey, where's the physical box?
I mean, it just needs to come out in you can only do so much at a time, right?
Well, I was getting ready to say, you're giving me the nice answer, but the reality is like, hey, dude, I just finished the damn book, man.
Yeah,
let me get one thing done.
Give me a minute, right? Honore's already like, write another book. I'm like, chill, okay? Just chill. No, so I had a prototype made, which I am absolutely in love with, and it's a plastic box that doesn't open. It has a slit in the top. It's labeled the bullshit box. It comes with bullshit slips. You can take all your excuses, you can put them in the box, and they are physically inaccessible. Until you break it, and then you burn them, and then you start all over, because this is a vicious cycle of growth and development that doesn't have an ending point and is satisfying and painfully hurtful at the same time.
But satisfying.
It'll be fun. That's what they said to me before I signed up for a 24-hour obstacle course race. I feel like this is the same conversation.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Fun.
I feel like I'm talking to my recruiter all over again. Like,
yes,
hey, man.
It'll be fun. You will like it.
It's only 8 weeks.
The pendulum. Lucas, you will like it. These are not the droids you're looking for.
So you tell me you like to run.
I hate running.
And push-ups. Push-ups are a fun thing.
Karen actually sent me a message. She was laughing so hard when she edited this part of my book, because I talk about the first time I walked into an obstacle course racing gym and what that experience was like for me. And I can tell you that I would have loved to be a fly on the wall, so that I could laugh at myself in hindsight, because it was pretty comical.
It's great.
Yeah. Karen called me. She's like, I'm laughing so hard, I'm crying. I'm like, good.
See that? It's not just informative and reflective. It's also entertaining. There's some comedic bend to the book.
Right.
So, excellent. So, well, where can we find out more about you? I mean, I've got a link to your to your book in the comments. I've got a link to your site. But where are you most accessible?
Um, so the website is being redesigned, but it's successdevelopmentsolutions.com. That will stay the same. The podcast was already rebranded. So Break Your Bullshit Box podcast. As More Than Corporate, we had 298 episodes. So we just passed the 300 episode mark with Break Your Bullshit Box. And I'm
Nice.
always looking for guests. So if you think we're going to have a good conversation, I mean, this is the level of laughter I expect, though. So just so you know where your bar's at.
It's not
Um,
serious. It's not a very serious podcast.
I mean, it depends.
It's serious, but it's not heavy, right?
Yeah, no, it is not
Yeah.
heavy, but we go deep, but it's not heavy. It's light. It's light and honest.
Very
Because if
good.
you can't laugh at yourself, then what are you doing? Right?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I'm not gonna, I can't just sit in. I mean, even like I write horror. People are probably laughing right now, going, "Dude, what are you talking about?" Like,
Yeah,
you wrote a
I
book
love
about
it.
like dealing with the death of children, like, but the reality is like there has to be something that engages you and holds you, and oftentimes
Yes.
that is just like I'm learning while having fun, while getting
Yeah.
to know some really fun people.
Because learning when you're not having fun is like school.
Oh my
So
gosh.
it's horrible.
Eh,
If you message me on LinkedIn, I'm probably never going to respond. I think I logged in 8 months ago. So I want to get better at that. And I am focusing on getting better at that. Facebook, Instagram, or, um, well, Facebook, Instagram, my Facebook group, the podcast, all the things. Like, track me down. I'm not hard to find.
There you go. And if you guys need to, you can reflect on the show notes, and I'll have links in there, and you can go find Amber and you can learn all this stuff. Go out and pick up the book. It's available all the places right now. And we were talking right before the show. I'm patiently awaiting the delivery of mine. Within the next 18 hours, it should be at my house.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, and I'm very excited to go through it and then share that with other people, because to me it's it's a great gift to be able to give someone that type of book, something that really is designed from like page one to the back cover to help people. So I'm looking forward to it.
I'm really excited. And if anybody listening to this is ever in Vegas, hit me up and let's grab a drink
Well,
in October.
I will see you there in November.
You'll be here in November. See? Oh,
Yes.
yes, you're coming. I'll be at the same. Yes, I'm
Yes.
going. I was actually just thinking about that today. So yes, and we can have a beer.
There you
I
go.
will be done with my dry 10 weeks.
Perfect. All right, guys. Well, that is it for today's session with Miss Amber Fuhriman. Amber, thank you so much for all of your great insight, for keeping it fun, for sharing everything with the book and the coaching programs and your perspectives on all these things. It's been an absolute blast having you on. And well, I got a feeling you'll be back really shortly. We are still and probably forever will be connected via the person who's missing today, Miss Honore Quarter. So,
I mean,
um,
I'm glad you're confident I'll be back because I don't know if she's ever going to talk to me again.
she,
She'll
she
be like,
will.
no, I'm really excited. Thank you, Phil. I'm looking forward to connecting with you. I will reach out. I'll log into LinkedIn just to talk to you because, oh, well, is this streamed on LinkedIn? Is that why everybody's on LinkedIn? I
Yeah,
just noticed everybody's on LinkedIn.
yeah, we're streaming via LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook.
Got you.
So you're world famous now.
I'm
Congratulations.
world famous. Only on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, though.
That's right. That's it. Just those three
Just
places.
kidding.
So, all right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Karen, Phil, Tony, everybody, Jesus, everyone that called in. We appreciate you guys interacting with us in the chat and the comments. Go check out Amber's stuff, pick up her book, subscribe to the podcast, keep your eye on the notifications. We're here live every Thursday at noon Eastern time. And Amber, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Bye, guys.